I'm really, really thrilled listening to these presentations. Anup, it's like, when I see school kids working on puzzles, you know, they will certainly open a box with pieces, and you pick up any piece will make no sense. And then they slowly start fixing those puzzle pieces. And finally, an impressive picture emerges. Now, you may like that picture, you may hate that picture, you may be indifferent to the picture, but at least you get to know what these hundreds of pieces put together are causing. Now, that is how I look at, for example, the environmental issues. Environment is one word, but it has millions of underlying pieces of that puzzle, right? It behaves in a certain manner, but that behavior is then caused and regulated by hundreds of different factors. And we may not like that behavior, what happens? We may not like the cyclones, we may not like the floods, we may not like the droughts, we may not like the forest fires, we may not like so many things. But the fact is, these things are happening because of a very complex process. So you cannot simply wish them away unless you understand the process. Now, there is a hard way to understand the process, and there is an easy way to understand the process. In fact, the other day I was in a clinic for some reason, and sitting there, when I saw the doctors, because the body, it's like we are talking about global warming. Now, when the humans have fever, it's a symptom. But the underlying causes, it could be an infection, it could be an inflammation, it could be organ malfunction, it could be a malignancy, it could be a genetic disorder, it could be many things. Now, when you go to the doctor, he doesn't have to open the body every time you have fever. Yes. Or you have some symptom. So what do? They run some tests, which are relatively simple compared to opening the body every time. And looking at those test results, conclusion, what could be the underlying reason? Yes. So these are basically standardized, simplified markers of a much deeper and profound problem. But once you are able to come to a conclusion that what could be the underlying reason, it becomes easier for you to treat the underlying reason. Yes. I see the UDA framework in that context. Now, ocean is an immense body of water, almost 3 times larger than the land. In fact, this planet is a water planet. Because humans live on land, we call it land. We call it mother land. It's really mother water. And in fact, the life originated in water. So it's a huge body, and it in fact regulates not only its own behavior, but it also regulates the behavior of land. So it's a hugely complicated, complex, and important part of the planet. And our understanding of that part is almost negligible. Now we are, for example, we crib about global warming. And what are we looking at when we dig deeper into the causes? We are still looking at causes in silos. We found all right, it could be greenhouse gas emissions and its concentration variation may be capturing heat, and as a result, there may be warming of the climate. But where is this greenhouse gas coming from? Is it one source? Is it two sources? Is it 3, 10, 20, 30, 40? How many we know and how many we do not know? You see, we have to understand carbon dioxide, which is the main greenhouse gas in the culprit for global warming. It has a natural cycle. There are sources of production and there are sources of consumption. And the planet has maintained the concentration for billions of years. Now, which means this complicated planet knows how to manage it. Problem is when we interfere. Yes. In fact, humans have always looked at the environment as an obstacle, unfortunately. Because we wanted to do something and suddenly there was a river on our path. We got angry. We wanted to go somewhere, suddenly there was a mountain in the sometimes there was a fire, we were angry. So we were always angry with the nature because we thought nature was coming in the way. And we started doing things how to overcome the nature, or in a more crude manner, we wanted to defeat the nature. Can we defeat it? Which means we would not behave according to its requirement, but we will force the environment to behave according to my requirement. Now, as long as it was pre-industrial revolution, an individual could only do that much damage to the environment. You could only produce that much. That's it, because you had two hands. And with two hands, you could only do that much damage. And we started looking for force multipliers. Now, these force multipliers worked at different levels. And for sake of simplicity, the number of hands increased. Now, just imagine if the world just about 200 billion, it became 6 billion. So what happened? The number of hands increased. And then we developed technologies which multiplied the impact of each hand several hundredfold. As a result, our limitation to damage the environment was overcome with technology. We could tame the rivers, burn the forest. We could tame the mountains. We could reduce whatever we wanted. And that is where it started. We were harnessing these resources, but we started exploiting the resources. So much so that our over-exploitation of the resources today is manifold the capacity of the planet. The planet does not have the capacity to regenerate those resources at the speed at which we are consuming. So there is an imbalance. But what's happening? In fact, these imbalances are occurring given the size of the planet. These are occurring at micro level, in silos. Somebody is mining, is not aware of the ocean. Somebody is dumping plastic into the ocean, is not aware of the forest. So these, or somebody is producing, polluting cars. They were not aware of desertification. So these damages were being done in silos. So one silo didn't know what was happening in the other silo, although the silo was environmentally connected to the other silo. So while our understanding was in silos, our impact was global. So we were messing these without doing that, these are connected. And suddenly the environment comes back and says, sorry, my dear Buffalo, I don't believe in silos. I come back with my general reaction to the mismanagement. Now, back to the ocean, the underwater. I have mentioned it so many times. We see the symptoms over water, but all the causes lie underwater. So unless we understand the underwater domain, we simply cannot sustainably handle the consequences, which are symptoms, including global warming. Now I heard somebody saying, global warming causes acidification. No, it's the acidification which causes global warming. Yes. And what is that acidification? Is it a simple process? The answer is no. It's an extremely complex process why the oceans are getting acidified. Now, either, as I said, either we can open the body for every symptom, or we can develop some kind of standardized markers for understanding the underlying complex reasons for symptomatic. That is where I think the underwater domain awareness, the UDA framework, comes into, which means we want to generate all possible data underwater, then analyze that data with respect to the functions that are carried out. The physical functions, the chemical functions, the industrial functions, the social functions, the biological functions. And then develop those markers that if this happens, this must be the cause. Now, I always give this example of El Nino or La Nina. Now, both are extremely complicated processes. But what is the marker? The marker is when the variation in temperature exceeds 0.5 degrees, we know that whether La Nina is taking place or El Nino is taking place. Can you see this simple method of at least getting to know that something complicated is going to happen? Now, that is where UDA can, in fact, create those markers where you take sample symptomology, and based on that symptomology, I'm now going a bit deeper into symptomology. It's not pure symptoms, but you're looking at the physical features, the chemical features, the biological features. Based on those features, you're coming to a marker which will tell you a much more complicated damage is being done. It can advance warn you. It can warn you in time, or it can help you overcome the damage which has already been done. That is where the whole balance of mitigation versus adaptation comes. You see, we are all talking about adaptation. I love adaptation. But adaptation is not the final solution. Because that's a competition between the consequences of the damage and the kind of protection that we are creating. We are not solving the problem, but we are creating some kind of a protection against the consequence. We will raise the protection, say, to a point X. The consequence will become X plus 1. Then we'll raise X plus 1. It will become X plus 2. it will be an endless process of competition between the human capacity to destroy and the environment capacity to come back and hurt the civilization. See, so I think that is where, in fact, I really admire Anup, your approach to understanding the underwater. Yes. Because once you understand the oceans, you will not only solve the problems of the ocean, but you will also solve the problems of the land. Because these both are connected. And ocean is 3 times bigger than land. And if I count the depth, the magnitude is much larger. Yes. So I congratulate your participants, but I also want to request them now, can we bring together the pieces of this puzzle or these puzzles and start creating some picture which ordinary people could understand? Yes, the experts can understand the pieces of the puzzle, but the ordinary man does not understand, and the governance is in the hands largely of ordinary people. So we have to convert a technical knowledge into a simple language and simple solutions. With these words, I congratulate you again, Anup, and I hope these things will move towards creating the larger picture and we do not stay with the pieces of the puzzle. Thank you.